The Man with No Name. Human beings and stories are connected since the start of time. From your childhood to your adult life, you must have known or heard various stories. Normally, stories have a beginning, middle, and an end. But there are exceptions to this rule that exists as well. One such exemption is the story we're going into. This is a story where the middle is where the story starts. But the question here is, even if it began from the middle, can the middle support the story? Or is its existence a futile one? We trust that you'll find this video enlightening and supportive. And if you did, remember to offer this video as a go-ahead. Buy into our channel and hit the chime symbol to get informed of our forthcoming recordings. Near the Mexican border in California, our story started where a crash happened. These were hopeful travelers who were here to cross over to fulfill their American dream. But fate had planned something else for them. Some died, although one person did not die. But his whole life before this day did have a death. In those moments of shock, he lost his existential foundation and became a speck. Who he was and what happened later on is the question here. In a San Diego hospital, he found himself, but according to doctors, his condition was a persistent vegetative state, with his inability to speak, breathe, or eat on his own. He was more or less an alive corpse. There was nothing that could confirm that even if he remembered his identity, such a dilemma is something that no person deserves. But unexplainable events occur in this universe. But what is the end of his story? Will that man with brown eyes, young round face, without any notable scar but the one from the accident, will be scarred forever to a life of being a no one? With no name to be given, he was at the mercy of anyone who wanted to call him. So some people chose to call him Pancho, and others went for Jesus, Jose, or Juan. But there was a need for him to be assigned a name for being used in the charts, forms, and the billings. He got a rather strange one. 66 Garage was the name he got. There was not much of a chance for him to reunite with his family or get back on his feet. A life like that in anonymity and isolation seems like his only possible story. But one can never be sure about the twists and turns this life have, or whether to share in these twists has ceased or he has more to see. Although his story was not known, but the news found its way to the people. There were so many people who tried to contact with their own family history to the hospital. The disappearance while heading northward was something that has happened to so many families. For some, it was a friend, cousin, brother, husband, or son. They all saw hope when they saw that young man in bed. But whose quest for hope will be fulfilled here is a huge mystery. Such is the turmoil of missing people mysteries through which so many people have been going. There were posts shared by different people in Facebook groups. There were thousands of reshares within hours by people from different areas. To help the affected families, there are so many pages on the internet. In order to track down the missing people, the efforts being done are huge and consistent. Among these efforts one day, the man from San Diego who has no name was seen on Facebook by a woman in McAllen. Is it the moment fate is going to change for them all? The hope was still alive in the family's heart. Gilberto was the name of that woman Liliana Lara's brother. The time when 66 Garage had his accident is the same time since Gilberto was lost. In the Mexican state of Tamaulipas, the family resided. There were 7 siblings and 2 were close to each other. Their father remarried and their mother worked here, and then hence his childhood was definitely not a bed of roses. He was someone who had hope to find his life and future in the good conditions in the US. But what happened to him afterwards is still unknown. This kind of situation is something that was similar to so many other people. Liliana was informed by the Mexican consulate when she tried to find Gilberto. There are people missing, kidnapped, abducted, and no identification is available. There even is something that happens in Texas where people die and there is no evidence left that for once they were part of this world. A mass burial was done, and so many bodies exhumed. which were now being identified thanks to the anthropologist Kate Spradley along with her students. Could this effort be a beacon of hope for the thousands of people missing on their loved ones? There are certain steps that are taken when the staff members of Mexican consulates in the US make efforts in such situations. A database is maintained. The detention centres are checked. To the unidentified bodies, the forensic info is compared. Also, on retainer, they keep a DNA testing lab. There is a group named Border Angels who found Enrique Morones had been on a mission to provide water in the deserts. He had shared an incident when he found almost every hand was rising when he asked in a village if they had lost family members who had planned to cross borders. Such a grim state of the affairs is enough for the people to lose any positivity in them. But could the tables turn? The woman who was the sister of Gilberto last got in contact with him in Thermopolis and then lost connection. They searched for him in different places, from hotels to prisons, morgues, hospitals, but there was no sign of him. These families, who have no knowledge where their loved ones are, do not leave any stone unturned. For them, everything is a possibility. This has been said by the official Chelsea Halstead, who worked for the Arizona-based Colibri Center for Human Rights. Upon seeing the person's photo, they were in between joy and pain. To find him like this, only God knows, were the words of Liliana's brother Graciano when he was later interviewed. This is definitely not a state one would wish on their enemies. According to Chelsea Halstead, she wouldn't wish this on anyone. But will there be an end to this story of torture anytime soon? 66 Garage was never the name that Paula Lemus used or liked for the patient. She was the woman who took the photographs. From the time she and her brother visited him in July of 1999, she felt something for him that was not pity. For her, he felt family. She was there for him in the coming 15 years, and she kept her promise to him. She kept him up to date with the things that happened. She had a hope that one day some miracle will happen for him. And will it happen, or will it just be wishful thinking? Only time can tell the truth to us and her. Later, she was invited to a TV show for a segment on the man in the bed. She couldn't go, but a friend visited the show. The friend shared the information that 10 years ago, Paula had lost her own brother. When she shared the photo, she got so many responses. But only one case tended to match the time of the man with no name's accident time, and this one was Gilberto. So the wait of Liliana and her family was over now. She came to meet him with hopes and doubts in her heart. Upon meeting him, she was clear this was not Gilberto. Months later, it was proven by DNA test as well. It was not a miracle moment for Gilberto's family, but Liliana shared the story and spread it because who knows, this might become a miracle for some family. And the miracle did happen. When a woman saw the photo of the man with no name and was certain she knew him. He was her Maria Guzman's cousin. She was from Guanajuato, and for 15 years her cousin was missing. The resemblance was uncanny to her. Was this the moment when the mystery of 66 Garage's family will end? Enrique Morones of Border Angels were told by Paula that she is a border angel too. Through her efforts, Enrique was put in touch with the nursing home by Joanne Ferrion, the journalist from San Diego. The case was finally becoming a priority after years of uncertainty. The database was run on the laptop and the fingerprints were scanned. In the system, they found the name and birth date, and finally the existence of the man who had no name was now known. The thing left now was the most important one, the reunion of the family. But will it happen in a complete manner? It turned out that the man was from the Oaxaca area, Mexico, and his parents were no longer alive. Through the DNA, it was proved that her sister was alive, and after a long silence, she was one who had lost any hope for finding her brother alive. There was no time she took to find him on any of the message boards. Just as Paula and Liliana helped her brother's hand, so did she. It was a moment that touched everyone who was there in those moments. The tears shed were not only by her, but by all the humans there. It was not allowed by the family to release the name, but everyone was so grateful now that they know who he is. Paula visited him once after this, but later on she was not allowed due to privacy concerns by the nursing home. She still spending time under the nursing home in Colorado at times. To her, he was a part of her life. This miracle brought happiness to Liliana as well. Her mother Ophelia still is hoping for reuniting with her son once before her death. On the site, the photo is still live in the possibility of meeting their missed loved ones. There still are people who believe or want to believe. But the story we all knew once about an unclaimed migrant whose photograph became a live miracle on hope for so many people has ceased to exist. In this world where so many things become obsolete and others are termed as an illusion, the story of a man who has no name became one. But it definitely was a story that helped so many families to have hope in the possibility that miracles are not just a fantasy. They do happen in the real world as well.